From the revelation of Dr. K, we lead to a string of episodes to get into more detail with the backstories of the Rangers, beginning with Ranger Green. We learn Ziggy's special Ranger power, teleportation.
Hey, something, feels different. I think it worked. I did it! Look at me! Look at me!
Oh, I'm looking. And I think I've seen enough. More than enough.
Well, while Ziggy recovers his clothes, let's have a lack of transition into the flashback, where Ziggy crashes a car when he gets his license. I know! Anyway, the failure of the driving test comes as a blow for his hopes of joining up with the Scorpion crime cartel and its leader, Fresno Bob. Yes, seriously. But yeah, you wouldn't think the lack of a license would be that big a deal with a criminal organization, but remember, they got Capone on a smaller offense. It'd be kind of embarrassing if your cartel was taken down because one of its members failed a driving test. Ziggy ended up joining anyway when Venjix began his war, forcing everyone to flee to Corinth. The cartel was probably short on manpower because of this and brought him on despite the lack of a license. The cartel then began hustling other Power Rangers.
Don't make us come back. Next time, Fresno Bob and the Scorpion cartel won't be asking so nice.
Yeah, what he said.
Okay, it could just be another Jungle Karma franchise. Or, since this is an alternate universe, I guess RJ isn't a member of the Order of the Claw. However, when he's sent to hustle an orphanage, we learn he has a connection with them, and how all the kids in the orphanage are suffering from gamma sickness. So they're all going to become the Incredible Hulk? Ziggy eventually managed to piss off all 5 remaining crime cartels when a deal was made between all of them to transport a massive amount of medical supplies for the black market, and he was the driver. He instead took the supplies to the orphanage to help them. A friend of his in the cartel helped sneak him out of the city, though why he decided to come back is left in the air. Though you could probably argue there was nowhere for him to go in the desert. We move on to Ranger Red. Remember way back in Season 2 and my long-ass rant about the baby stroller? Well, I kind of missed that, because here's Scott tossing a baby carriage around with the baby inside. Congratulations, Scott, you've helped dwindle the human population down even more. Scott's backstory, of course, involves his brother, Marcus. Marcus was the leader of Eagle Squadron, an Air Force group that engaged Venjix when the war began. Their orders were to stay in the combat zone and protect all the coming civilians into Corinth. Their father ordered Scott to hang back and stay out of his brother's way, thinking Scott wasn't ready for such a big position, an opinion he echoes later when Dr. K needs Scott to retrieve a piece of technology outside the city on his own.
You're not ready for this kind of thing, Scott. I know it. And Marcus knew it too.
Of course, what actually happened in the battle was that everyone else in Eagle Squadron was shot down, possibly because Marcus wasn't there to guard Marcus's flank. We see in the flashback that the first to go down was Marcus's wingman. Scott survived the crash and was rescued by Summer, leading us into what we saw in the first episode. But yeah, Scott naturally went off and got the equipment, narrowly being rescued by his father on the way back in. We also see a practical purpose for the tire decorations on the Power Rangers cuffs when Scott uses it to grind into a monster during the fight, so kudos there. In addition, Scott was able to retrieve Marcus's written recommendation from the crash to make Scott his second in command, leaving it on his father's desk. So, up yours, Truman. We then move on to the 2-parter Ranger Yellow. A class is getting to talk to the Rangers, and really goes to show how bad things are for the human race if the class is this small. And the Rangers get to impart their wisdom.
Do you have any advice for all the kids out there who look up to you?
No.
Well, at least they can see how well-adjusted and intelligent the defenders of the human race are.
Would you please tell me, where do you get your spandex?
That is not spandex. The material is a self-assembling memory.
Summer's backstory reveals her to be a spoiled rich girl, though certainly a talented one, with a propensity not only for martial arts, but also dirt bike racing. She's also a massive asshole, planning out her own surprise party and heavily abusing her butler. It's not surprising she was like that, though. Aside from the flashback showing her parents apparently being absent, when said parents show up at the command garage, they're snooty, uptight, and frankly a little baffling in the face of the end of the world. While I don't doubt that there's an economy within Corinth, the environment has shifted to the point where you really can't just have people like this surviving. The way they act around Summer, they don't even seem to recognize the importance of keeping the human race alive. I sincerely doubt the governing body in Corinth, which I presume to be mostly military run given the constant crisis, would abide people like Summer's parents. They think their money can let them get away with anything, they provide no valuable skills to society, they're not smart, and they think other people are beneath them. Crime syndicates I can understand. When resources are scarce, there are people who take advantage of that for their own ends. It's why the cargo Ziggy was transporting was medical supplies and not heroin or something. And the fact that the Rangers were able to walk up to Fresno Bob and ask him questions, knowing full well that he was a criminal, implies either corruption in the government or at least collusion, because the syndicates are able to get things that the proper channels can't. So they become a necessary evil, getting a larger degree of freedom from the authorities. Hell, it explains how in Ranger Green they were able to get Ziggy out of jail so they could murder him. But Summer's parents? They offer nothing of value, no resources or connections. They're just rich. I don't know, I guess it just bugs me since we never learn how they survive in Corinth, when I doubt they're doing anything to earn any money, and considering how they act, I can imagine them spending it fairly quickly and using it all up. Summer, in the flashback, is caught unawares at night during her party when Venjix begins his attack. Her servants have already fled, and she and her party guests work to get to Corinth. However, due to the capacity of the transport vehicle, Summer is left behind, even shoved off by one of her friends. Part 1 ends when we learn of why her parents have come back. Apparently, she made a deal with them that if they gave her some space, she would come back and marry a guy named Chaz Winchester, a guy even richer than her family. In the flashback, we soon see that her money is worthless for getting people to give her a lift, but fortunately, her butler actually does rescue her, quite happily in fact. Geez, whatever they were paying him, it was not enough. Or maybe it was, and that's why he's so friggin' loyal after the way he was treated. Their vehicle soon breaks down, and the butler, Andrews, actually carries her until they take a break, and Summer soon realizes what a colossal ass she's been.
Why do you put up with me? Why don't you just go ahead and leave me behind?
I suppose it's the same reason I've stayed with you and your family all these years, Miss Summer. I'm waiting.
Waiting for what?
For you, Miss Summer. I'm waiting for you to show me who you really are. Underneath that makeup, that hair, those fancy clothes, and that diamond.
I don't know who I am.
That's quite all right, Miss Summer. I do. That's why I'm happy to keep waiting.
Unfortunately, some grinders attack, and Andrews sacrifices himself to protect her. In the ensuing fight, she's forced to flee. After being reunited with her parents inside the city and overhearing a distress call from Scott as he was crashing, took a paramedic's uniform and a bike to go rescue him.
Why are you doing this? You're in Lansdowne. You don't help people.
I do now.
Summer's parents reveal to her that they're out of money, thus why they need the marriage, which explains how they've survived, but not how the Winchesters have. They're just as snooty and crappy. That being said, in the wake of the wedding getting crashed by Tanaya 7 and watching their daughter kick ass, Summer's parents declare she doesn't have to do anything and they'll get jobs. This resolution bugs me a lot. That it's just that simple to get them to turn around on the whole thing. What do they think was happening whenever the Rangers were defending the city? Did they never see anything relating to their daughter doing this stuff? It feels very off that they gave it a two-parter but only had a pat resolution. Still, let's move on to Ranger Blue. One of the things that people have said in the positive about this series is that it likes its self-referential humor, and Ranger Blue opens with a lot of it.
They are not eyes. They're optical field scanning sensors for your cockpit's HUD display.
Well, they look like, they look like...
They look like eyes. Big, googly anime eyes. Sometimes when I morph, I can't help but notice this gigantic explosion right behind me for no apparent reason.
I assume you're referring to the residual energy runoff that is sometimes necessary to clear the suit's biofield channels during the morph.
I'm referring to the 6-story high fireballs, like that one, right there.
When we morph, is it absolutely 100% necessary that we scream RPM getting gear at the top of our lungs?
The vocal call-out is a voice recognition, safety, and security measure.
Hell, they actually use the self-awareness later in the episode by using an explosion that they would cause behind them by morphing to blow up a group of grinders. But let's move from that onto Flynn's backstory. We first see his childhood, where he was a comic book fan who tried to help a girl get her lunchbox back and was beaten up for his troubles. And even the girl dumped her lunch on him. because children suck.
What were you thinking?
I was thinking I could help.
Oh, look what that got you. 2-week suspension.
2-week suspension for being beaten up. Subsequently, adults suck. And as an aside, it's really depressing that that fact is one of the most realistic things that's ever happened on Power Rangers. And since we're on that self-referential kick, I should note that a lot of Power Rangers teams kind of have a pattern to them. Just general personality types that are usually associated with the colors.
Red is the perfect one. Black is the brooding bad boy. Green is the clown, and yellow, well, she's the girl. So what are you supposed to be?
I'm Scottish!
After he graduated from college, Flynn decided he wanted to help people. First, he was a police officer, but was quickly fired after he arrested the mayor's son. From there, he became a firefighter, but in his zeal, accidentally caused more damage with his water hose than the fire was doing. After that, he became an international aid worker in South America? It's not clear. But he was ordered to evacuate when local militias began sweeping through the country. He stayed behind to help the natives fight, which was apparently enough to get him fired. Although, considering the Braveheart makeup, he still had a happier ending than that story. Plus, there's more than one aid organization. That kind of thing would actually get you good press. Unless the militia murdered all the indigenous people except Flynn, which would be downright depressing. But anyway, he returned to his father and became a mechanic, pretty much deciding that his good deeds were for naught, but then Venjix attacked. When he and his father arrived in Corinth, he overheard a woman pleading to the soldiers to go back and rescue more people. Naturally, Flynn took the bus out and saved the people, even managing to single-handedly fight off a bunch of grinders. We also learned this episode that whatever moron built Corinth decided to do so on not one, but 2 fault lines. You know, there's a lot of desert in the world, and you just had to pick the one spot where that was a thing. Because we already pretty much got as much of Dylan's backstory as he knows it, plus several episodes focusing on him already, there is no Ranger Black episode. Instead, we got one focused on Dr. K called, Dr. K. It's here where we really see her bust out a violin and show her stuff. She had used one during Ranger Yellow briefly, but we see her actually in action with it at the beginning here. She's not half bad either.
Doc K.
Although I think her strings are wound a bit too tight. Anyway, she informs the Rangers that they've basically plateaued on their technological level. They can't advance any further than they have without another device like the one Scott grabbed in Ranger Red, and there was only one of those. And since Venjix's monsters keep advancing their own technology, they've now reached the point where Venjix has superior tech. Ziggy, however, remains optimistic in the face of this, since they're the good guys.
Tell me, what's it like?
What's what like?
Being stupid your whole life. Is it as wonderful as it seems?
A bit of an insult, yes, but in a flashback we soon see the problem. As a child, she was a natural genius, and the government quickly snatched her up to be a part of a think tank called Alphabet Soup and given a letter code name. Naturally, her designation was W. Okay, yeah, she was K. On her 6th birthday, she asks if she can go outside.
Okay, we've been over this. You're a very sick little girl, and the sun makes you unwell.
Maybe next year.
You know what could be really fun in the meantime?
You could try cracking this series of encrypted rocket codes.
Or you could design us a thermal-sensitive guidance system.
How about deducing the macromolecular origin of these biotoxins?
And of course, when she became much older, she made the same request, but they just asked her to make them a computer program.
Now don't forget to make your birthday wish.
You do have a wish, don't you?
I wish I could remember my name.
As she began working on the Ranger program, the government supplied her with 2 other members of Alphabet Soup, although they were clearly not in the super genius category.
Hello.
Dr. K.
I'm Jem.
And I'm Gemma.
We're going to have so much fun working together.
Just tell us what we can do.
You can stop talking like that.
Like?
What?
However, regardless of how annoying their little psychic finish each other's sentences thing can be, their hearts are in the right place.
And surprise!
For me, but why?
It's your birthday.
And we're friends.
Gemma, you 2 should know, I don't even like you.
That's okay, we know.
But we can still like you, can't we?
One day, upon spotting a butterfly in her room, she followed it out to a window with sunlight streaming in. Once she realized that the sunlight didn't actually hurt her like the government had said, she swore to get out and bring Jem and Gemma with her. But how will she get past the security?
With this. A wireless upload of the Vengex virus. It's a self-aware, self-generating computer virus. Meet Project Vengex.
Oh. However, the military quickly enters and drags her away before she can install a firewall that would have blocked Vengex from spreading beyond Alphabet Soup. And then, of course, the war happened, and it was Dr. K who made the distress call from the beginning of the show. The government tried to stop her, not wanting word of the source of Vengex ever leaking out, but Jem and Gemma intervened and allowed Dr. K to escape. The two went back inside to retrieve the other two classified morphers, the Gold and Silver series. But an explosion rocked the area soon afterwards, and she had to leave them behind. Thanks to a complicated series of events involving a monster that could clone objects, Dr. K is able to get a second one of those devices and upgrade their Megazords. Yeah, they got a second Megazord earlier, no biggie. So that both can combine into a single big one. And as I've said before, the only thing cooler than a giant robot is two giant robots merged together into a bigger giant robot, the Zenith Megazord, which allows all 5 Rangers in the cockpit at once. And Dr. K defeats Tanaya again with the power of violins, and sheds some tears for those she lost, herself included. You know, a few years ago, a commenter on That Guy with the Glasses, really more of a troll, threw out a bunch of insults at me for taking so much time to deconstruct and analyze a kids show like Power Rangers. That it didn't deserve to have so much thought put into it. It was just a dumb children's show. Episodes like Dr. K are the counter-argument. Just because something is made for children doesn't mean it still can't be sophisticated. Just because it's meant for little kids does not mean it can't be well written. And just because it's about people in spandex, and yes, it is spandex, punching robots does not mean it can't also emotionally move you. This episode is heavy, not just with the themes of guilt, lost innocence, authoritarian stripping of identity and freedom, but also cinematography-wise, it's filmed differently than most episodes, with lots of very different sorts of angles, and, of course, the repeated shot of the two government agents off to the side and never seen in full. Faceless and anonymous. And a lot of the credit definitely goes to Olivia Tennant for her acting in the episode, carefully balancing the serious nature of her character in front of the Rangers, the raw feelings of betrayal and guilt, and the quiet dignity and pain she has had to go through with her entire life pretty much stolen from her, first by the government and then by Vengex. And she was only 17 years old at the time. Oh, and the violin piece she played throughout the episode? Paganini's Caprice No. 24 in A minor, one of the most difficult pieces for a solo violin to perform. So anyway, let's get back to something silly, shall we? So, the next episode is Blitz, where Dylan has a wacky dream about his past, someone he loved being dragged away by grinders, and his insecurities about his identity. Go Power Rangers. Da 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 da. During the episode, Dylan encounters a monster that he recalls from the dream, who identifies him as Subject D44. The monster also has his remaining memories, and eventually he's forced to destroy it. Unfortunately, it seems the monster left a parting gift, an activation sequence for the robotics in his body, which Dr. K tells him will overtake his mind and body. Following this is Brother's Keeper, where a remote device is placed on Dylan during a fight that allows Vengex to take control of him and try to wreck up the place. In a nice change of pace, the other Rangers instantly recognize that he's under mind control and get him free from it. But unfortunately, there was a secondary program in the device designed to upgrade the virus taking control of him, making it go 50 times faster. They managed to get a circuit board that will return the virus to a previous growth state, but the encryption requires the base code for the Vengex virus. And Dr. K enters it, admitting to the others that she was the one who created Vengex. This brings us to Embodied, where Vengex downloads himself into a robotic form. Meanwhile, the Rangers want to try hypnotizing Dylan to get answers about his past, but he's reluctant with everyone watching him.
You have a computer virus spreading Vengex machinery through your body as we speak.
A computer virus you created and released.
Dylan, it was an accident.
I spilled my OJ this morning. That was an accident. She ended the world.
I would lay the blame on the government agents for stopping her from inputting the code, leading back to her still making it in the first place, to back to the government agents, but then we'd quickly be playing a game of...
But it isn't my fault. I was given those beans. You persuaded me to trade away my cow for beans.
They managed to hypnotize him, though it's an odd form since it takes on the illusion of a simulation of Venjix displaying images of his past. He sees there's someone he was supposed to protect, but also sees a sign reading Kenmore.
A new Kenmore could save 10 to 44% on your annual cooling costs.
The place, Kenmore Square, is inside of Omega City, a town that was the first evacuated after the war with Venjix began. They decide to head out there in a big van with some strange writing on it.
Project Go Onger, the ground outdoor operational networked general purpose explorational rover.
I would have taken the Go Ranger myself, but it's not my car. Normally I would say they should just take the Zords in case they run into trouble, but I'm assuming they're trying to get there under the radar from Venjix, and the big-ass machines would attract more attention. On the way, they run into Venjix.
5 brightly colored nuisances finally coming to an end.
And who are you?
Just call me the mother of all upgrades!
Now!
Naturally, Venjix walks right through them, unleashing some grinders on them, and then upgrading the grinders so they beat up the Rangers too. Which he never does in the future. Weird. Dylan finally recognizes their enemy.
Yes, I am Venjix, the one immortal me! You should have stayed in your dome, Rangers!
After forcing them to demorph, they give retreat in the van. Venjix chases them in a flying vehicle, and they're forced into a tunnel to hide it out. They call out their Zords and fight him briefly, but his flying vehicle splits into 5 air drones to even the odds. However, the tide is turned by the arrival of 2 more Zords, which shoot down Venjix and seemingly destroy him, but he immediately returns to the HQ and fabricates a new body.
But I am Venjix. I am immortal.
From there, we head into Ghosts. The Rangers arrive in the ruins of Omega City. Naturally, they are treating the dangerous situation they're in very carefully.
Hang a left up here.
A left? But the on-ramp's right in front of us.
I know, but I want to avoid the motorway around rush hour.
Rush hour? Are you serious? Look around you, man. We're in a post-apocalyptic abandoned city.
They speculate about who or what the other Zords could be.
It's not normal, okay? It's a giant flying chicken that's shooting laser beams at people. Really?
Okay, I'm with Flynn. This thing is so weird.
Weird? Okay, you cruise around in a giant yellow teddy bear, okay? I drive a big green fish. Look in the mirror, people. We're in no position to be sitting in judgment of anything weird.
Back in Corinth, Dr. K analyzes the remote control device that had been placed on Dylan and realizes that it's emitting a signal. The same signal that she can now also detect coming from Kenmore. In other words, the Rangers are walking into a trap. She tries to contact them, but by the time she gets through, they've already left the Go Onger and are exploring the square. She does finally manage to alert Ziggy and Flynn that they didn't actually hypnotize Dylan, they were false memories planted by the remote control device, which would probably explain the Venjix display inside of his brain. Unfortunately, they're too late and Venjix's forces attack. During the battle, however...
No!
The 2 Rangers proceed to kick ass, but then quickly leave after the monster retreats. As for Dylan...
Don't worry, we'll help you find the answers.
You guys are the answer. I'm just looking for the question.
However, the monster left a parting gift, planting bombs in the back of the Go Onger and blowing it up. Venjix, one of his generals, and the monster show up to confront the Rangers, but once again, the Gold and Silver Rangers show up to save them. Didn't we just have this scene? I will say this, their weapons are cool. Twin daggers that have multiple modes, like energy slicers or a freezing mode. It's spiffy. Venjix and the General withdraw. Yeah, I'll give you the General's name when he actually does something of significance. And the monster is left to fight the Rangers. The 2 give the other Rangers a lift back to Corinth.
Let me warn you, when you meet Dr. K, she's a little icy and cold at first, but don't take it personally. It's she treats everybody like that, I think it's just the way she is.
Gemma.
Hello, Dr. K.
We've missed you.
I guess she's maybe trying kind of a different management style with family.